Welcome to the Latina Moms Building Wealth interview series. Please note that this is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as advice. Today, it's an honor to have with us another co-author of Latinas en Finanzas, Rubi Velazquez from MRV Financial. Ruby, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's tax season and it's a busy season for you. So thank you for carving out some time for us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Michelle. You know, people think they were sisters or we're related somehow because of our last names. And I always say, look at our spelling. And people will be like, oh, you guys are so special. I'm like, I know, right? That's the Velazquez for you. It's with a Z or with an S. So
I always think that too. I'm like, people are going to think we're related, but one's an S, one's a Z.
yeah, so thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to, continue to get to know you since we launched the Latinas in Finances book. Can't wait for the next surprises that we have for people, which, we'll keep it in the vault for now. So yeah, I am here to help, help you empower women and offering my assistance in any way, shape, or form that you see fit. I am a accountant and financial manager. I have been in the finance field 20 years now. Super happy to still be here of service. I launched my business. I went out on my own 10 years ago. So I've been in business 10 years. So I just dawned on me a few days ago that I am no longer a baby. In my company, you tend to think like I'm still growing, and then when you really look at when you built over a decade, it takes that pride to say like, I can no longer say I'm new at this anymore. You've already passed markets. You're established. So what I do for a living is I help people with their finances when it comes down to let's say you're a business owner, you're trying to set up your business, you need help with your financials, whether it's accounting services, whether it's financial management of it. That is the gist of it. Amongst those two big titles that I just said, there's a lot of little services that it involves. So we offer about 13 different services. From taxes, it is tax season, so we do both personal and business, from a sole proprietor all the way up to corporations, partnerships, nonprofits. So we do it all. Trust. We do it all. And then as far as the other services, annual reports, forecasting, budgeting, all within the business setup. And then personally, we do help with financial reviews as well. If you want to have a one-on-one on, hey, it's more, I know you offer the same services, so to not confuse that part of it, Michelle does offer more of those coaching programs, right? Mm-hmm. For us, it's not a coaching. This is where you would work with Michelle. You want to get.
I gotta get you mindset ready, have that budget so we can pay Ruby for her services.
Exactly. So you will come to me. How I end up coming into that role is you already have a plan in place. You already know what you're doing. Now you're an executive. Now you're taking execution on what you need to do based on the plan that you work with Michelle. Mm-hmm. So for my services is more action based, more working with the government agencies and all of that stuff. So that's a little bit about me. I have two children. They're grown adults, so that has definitely been a growth experience for me. As a woman, as a mom, to have children who are, I will soon be called a complete empty nester. So I'm definitely working at it.
Ruby, we're going to go back a little bit because you gave us a lot of information, right? As a coach, a common thing that I see is that a lot of these women have side hustles and businesses, and I'm all about encouraging to have a business, to LLC it, to S corporate, because I feel like people lose so many benefits and we lose so much money, right? And so something that I like to tell my clients is, hey, I know that you want to go to TurboTax and go for free, but the reality is that someone like you is going to find those credits, right? And so I always tell people, sometimes you don't want to pay the accountant $200, $300, $400, right? But the reality is that if they can find you $5,000, $10,000, it's worth it. You know, it's same thing with
Mhm.
my coaching. That's kind of how, you know, I tell people, but what are some things that you see or that I know right now in tax season that you're like, I wish people knew, or um, how can I better serve them?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm glad that you asked that because what I want people to always remember, if you're gonna do it yourself, okay? The platforms that you use, whether it's TurboTax, whether it's H&R Block, whether it's US Free Tax, etc. Their systems are meant the way all of the systems are built, even my professional system, is you have access to all of the deductions, you have access to all of the credits. There's no experience or wisdom behind it if you're not doing it every single year. This is why working with someone like myself, this is where the value comes in. I have seen, we do offer those consultations as well of like, hey, I did my taxes, but can you review them for me? We do, offer that. And what I see all the time where people want to do it themselves is they give themselves credits that no longer exist. Why? Because they're not up to date with the law.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm here, because I stay up to date. I could tell you in the year 2023, there was 60 tax law changes. We already have them for 2024, and we're already getting access to 2025. 2025, I touch very lightly because it's so far ahead, but not so long that anything could change for 2025. But we know 2024 is done. So when you're talking to someone like myself, we're talking about what happened last year, what's happening today, empowering you to know what you should be doing this year versus if you go to a system, the system is as good as the user. That is the best advice that I could tell you, that the systems get controlled by the wisdom behind the system. Do you really know? And if you continue to do that, just stay up to date with, oh, let's say you're a homeowner. The homeowner credit, that interest credit was removed back in 2021. So there's been a lot of audits happening since 2021 because people are still giving themselves that tax credit that they shouldn't be giving themselves. So if you're gonna, I really do recommend that you do work with a professional. Yes, it's gonna cost you money, but you're paying for peace of mind, you're paying for wisdom, you're paying for knowledge, and you have that I'm up to date, because one of the things that I would recommend too is one of the things of our industry, the reason why I do business the way that I do is because people don't know how they end up owing or why they're getting a reimbursement, a refund
Mm-hmm.
for their taxes. So we take the time to explain to you, this is how you got to the bottom line. This is that we give you back control. So if you're working with an accountant, you're working with a CPA, you're working with an enrolled agent, whoever it is, just make sure that when you're leaving that meeting, do you actually know how that happened? Because we hear it all the time. Oh, I owed money, but I don't know why. And we give you the tools, we give you the resources to say, if you don't want to owe in the future, I need you to fix this. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. That is the benefit of working with someone. That is not just that we're just plugging in numbers into a system. That is just a transaction.
Right, right. And something else that as I work with business clients that I see is like you said, you explain to them why you owe, and something huge is a tax strategy, right? Like, hey, if did I not maximize something this year? Right?
Yeah.
Like you could say, hey, did you pay your kids? You know, if your kids are working for you, did you use the Augusta? I mean, there's so many things that you can
Did
do
you?
for your business,
Oh,
right? And so now it's like having someone like you, it's hey, it's not just the plugging in the system and I got my refund, right? But it's like, hey, if you owe this year for next year, in order for you not to owe, you might need to make some adjustments, right? Or this is what you can do instead.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's priceless, right? Because that knowledge that you just gave someone, that strategy is not just for this year, but they can keep doing that for the following years. And that's critical.
Exactly. And then you also got to remember that you change. Your finances change with you. You see this all the time. I know that this is a women empowering channel. So let's definitely talk about how we empower women, right? If we, and this is generically speaking, but for women, let's say we change every year. If you don't change, you're not changing your career, but your pay is changing, right? We just change naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So are your finances changing with you? Is that strategy that I gave you 2 3 years ago, is that still doable?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is the nice thing of finding someone that you work well with, because it's a journey. I could tell you, I have clients still, thankfully. Thank you guys for still being with me.
Mm-hmm.
From when I first started. Um, Obviously, the growth comes in and you get new clients, but I could tell you our average client stays with us 7 years. So it goes to show you how much value we add and the bond that we create just to even doing your work for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, find someone that you really can, work with. Because in the finance field, specifically to what we do carry a lot of high stress level. We're problem solvers, we're strategists. We deal with probably 10 to 15 different case scenarios in one day. And can you understand the business model of the person that you're working with, the experience that they come with, so that you find whether that's a right match for you? I think that's super important because, you know, doing taxes already feels like I don't want to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We all
But
go
if
through
you have a system, right? If you have the structure, it's so much easier.
that. Mm-hmm.
And something else that I wanted to say is that sometimes as people, like last year, I had a friend reach out to me and she's like, how many exemptions are you putting? What are you doing? Because I have 4 kids and you have 4 kids. And I was like, no, it doesn't work that way. Like I have real estate, you don't. Like so personal finances is personal to you. And
Yeah.
sometimes people want to compare to the comadre, to the girlfriend, to the girl they work with. No. When you sit down with us, we're looking at the totality of the situation, right? And when it's out of my wheelhouse, I'm like, hey, I'm your coach, but you might need to see the accountant, the advisor, right? But I like to first see what they have before I can refer to the proper person.
Correct. Correct. Because that happens all the time. In the tax frame. Why does so and so get so much more than me? They are the same as me, and there's no way they're the same as you. If they were the same as you, they would have gotten the same result as you. So that's I say this all the time. If your paperwork is the same and you go to 10 different representatives, the formulas do not change. It's like a test. It's like sitting in a classroom. We should all have come to the same bottom line. We should all have the same. You know where the difference comes in? The experience of the person that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens during tax season? This is a very common practice. You go to one person. They do the work for you. They don't get paid for it. You go to the next person. They do, you get a different number. And then everyone's giving you a different number. And then you end up so confused. Well, think about who you had in front of. What was the experience that they had? You reminded me of a really funny interview that I had, not this year, it happened a few years ago, where it was during that transition of the home buyer's interest that you were able to take onto your federal taxes. And this person went ahead and gave herself a deduction. And when she first paid for me to review her taxes, and then at the end, she became a client because she ended up saying, I got less than she did. And she was not happy at all. She was not happy. I paid you. You're supposed to be better than me. heard everything. And I said, yeah, I totally understand the frustration. Let's go ahead and review the numbers. So I could, we had not presented the difference. It turned out that she gave herself a deduction that she should not have given herself. Now, can I sadly say that that happens in the professional world? That does happen too.
Mhm.
That the person might be part-time-ish. They may only open up during tax season and they're not preparing year round. So like for us, we work year round and that's like our number one goal. If I were to tell you what my business model is, there's three goals for my company. Being educational, once we sit with you, we have to give you education to make sure that you understand where you are. Second is we have to deliver it in a way that you actually understand it. And you have to be kind to everybody because we deal with so many stress levels. You always need to be in your kindest position.
Right.
That's my three pillars that we have to follow here at MRB Financial. So for me, that's always up in front of me of regardless of what happens, can you explain it in a way that's in the most educational, most informative, they can absorb it. And our delivery is everything.
Absolutely. For them to understand.
Yes, so for me, that's what I could say. Yeah, you're going to go to Michelle based on the conversation that you have with Michelle. She's going to guide you based off of that because she's working on a package for you to set you up year round. When you come to me, it's more transactional to say, okay, you already have all your house in order. Fantastic. And then if I do see some loopholes in there, then I'm like, oh, hey, you know what? You should be doing this. You could be doing that. We get that as part of our process, not necessarily a coaching program.
Right. And I feel like that's what a lot of people need. Like people come to me and it's like they want the strategy, right? They want to be able to understand. They want to know. They want to improve their business. And unless you maximize it, you're not saving. You're not maximizing the benefits of what it is to have a business.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, agreed. And there's so many different strategies. We'll talk about tax strategies right now since it's a tax season. There's a lot of different tax strategies within the tax system. There's personal and there's business. So then it's identifying where am I sitting at right now. So like let's say women, we are the matriarchs. I know in the like Latina community, that is the blessing that we get to be everybody's everything, right? So what happens with that? We carry the superwoman syndrome of we have
Off
to
camera, I gotta show them, Ruby, what I did off camera. This is us. Right?
Yes, exactly. And we feel like we're the ones that need to do everything, right? So one of the things that I always look at, let's say you're a businesswoman, is what can someone help you with? Because I've been blessed that initially when I first became a business owner, I've always believed in mentorship. Even before I was a business owner, I've always been that person that has friends that are older than them,
Mhm.
friends that are younger than them. And, I like to have different people because I like to hear different perspectives. For me to hear the same perspective over and over, to me, we don't live in those times anymore. We need to get out of our circles and we need to hear, especially today, right? So
Mhm.
one of the things that I always look at is the very first advice that I was giving was don't get used to working alone. And I will repeat that advice to you because I found that advice and I still implement it. I tell people now I don't know how to work alone. I
Mhm.
don't know how to work alone, because I've always had someone help me. So I remember when I first became a financial advisor, that was my first homework assignment. How can you excel without you doing it yourself? Fast forward, when I opened MRB Financial, I still practice that. Over the years, it changes, but that is it's a superwoman mindset and having all of the responsibilities. Really do pick and choose your battles to say, what is my net worth? How much am I worth? Because those are the activities that I should be doing. And
Mhm.
whatever thing coming to my net worth value, I could delegate that. Someone else could be doing that. But we get into this mindset of it's got to be, and then let's talk about type A personalities, right? Of nope, it has to be perfect, it has to be a certain way. I suffer from that, but I have been in I'm old enough to have understood a long time ago that there is no such thing as perfection. There is such a thing of perfection. So I've been always, I think the activity behind me is what beats that perfectionist to say there's no such thing of perfectionist, but that's a very type A mentality, right? So if you
And
don't get
what
away from
happens then, Ruby? What happens when you have this perfect, like you're stuck because you're waiting for that perfect time to launch or to do something, and then you just stay in the circle of like perfecting, 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 and you never really take that action.
exactly. So love yourself very imperfectly and pick an action that you know that you can commit to. Add more actions to it. Let's say that you are a professional woman. We see this. I come from the professional field. I used to have a 9 to 5. I used to serve corporate America, and I was, very professional. I still am professional, right? But now it's my turn to run my team. And I see that in the professional women as well, that we go to work, we have an expectation of being perfect there. Then we go home and then we switch ahead. Now we're going to become whatever our next role is personally, whether we're a mom, whether we're a sister, whether we're somebody something.
Mhm.
And we come into that perfectionism to say, no, the table has to be done a certain way, the food has to be done a certain way. Well, if you're trying to elevate and you're trying to scale to the next level, can you also look at your personal things to say, hey, what can I do on a personal life to actually enjoy it more? Because what happens to professional women, they get burned out.
Mhm.
Just how business women get burnt out, they get burnt out in a very different way because they still have to go work their 9 to 5 and they still have to care for the children. They still have to pack the lunches. They still have to pay the bills. Can you, I know you talk about this, can you look at those pockets and say, what can my significant other help me with? How can we have those sharing responsibilities? And I know you have those conversations.
And even not even just, and I think I struggled with that. And I talk about it in my private group a lot. Not only just your significant other, right? Because the expectation is, well, if I can do it, my spouse will. But how about if your spouse can't, or in my case, my spouse has a business to run? I really struggled with having a consistent cleaning lady because I felt like as a Latina woman, my mom would be like, how do you have somebody come and clean your house? Right? How do you have, and so the mindset is like, oh my God, if I'm gonna, to me, I saw it as an opportunity to help someone else while I focused on my kids or my business or whatever it is. And so sometimes we're like, we want to bounce, but we don't. And I see this when spouses are business partners, right? Like, I don't want to do this, like let them do it, right? But like, how about if they don't want to do it? How about if they're not good at that? How about if that's not what causes them joy? So at that
Yeah.
point, when I coach couples, I actually create two circles and I have in the center, what do you like to do? What does she like to do? What do neither of us like to do? And what's in the middle is what we're gonna outsource.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I really, really do, because that is true. Like, back to the net worth. How can, we started with a significant other, and yeah, you added that extra of who else can I hire for this,
Mhm.
right? That comes into your budgeting skills that we're always talking about. I'm sure
I
you
will
should.
budget for that cleaning lady. I know the need, women. I know the need that we have.
Exactly. And like you said, it may be a task that you actually enjoy. So
Mhm.
like, let's say for me, I said I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a wife, I'm a business owner, I'm somebody's friend, I'm somebody's something all the time. So for me as women, that's how I see us. We're these big caretakers, and we really need to take care of our health. We really need to put ourselves first to be able to care for everybody else, because if we're not okay mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, let's talk about, I always tell people, where is your single woman account? Where is your single man account? We should all have that even when we're married. Why? Because you never know that what you're building together, if something happens to him, if something happens to her, if something happens that our accounts get blocked for whatever reason that we don't have access to it, how are you surviving?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So are you guys also having that honest conversation of how much do you have in your single woman account? Do you guys have even that relationship to say, hey, as a single woman, I'm like this? You know, that could be used for anything, but it's more specifically to, we need to remember that we are people and we all have a time to serve this world, and then we got to meet our maker. How
Mm-hmm.
are we leaving? This is where your life insurance policies come in. This is where what are you leaving quickly accessible? Because if you think of how quickly that insurance policy is going to kick in, you got to put in a claim. You got to go through a process. Depending on the insurance carrier that you got to, let's definitely talk about that. Are you with a substandard type insurance carrier that you didn't even understand what kind of policy you had? When I used to sell insurances, that would be something that I would make sure that you understand this is what you have, and make sure that you explain to your wife what you bought and you didn't buy. The
Mm-hmm.
reason, one of the saddest case scenarios that I had was to actually help a woman dissolve her husband's business. She was a stay-at-home mom, never worked a day in her life. She was very dependent on her husband to care for everything. That hit me really hard, that there's a lot of people out there that are so dependent on the bread maker that they forget that they have rights. They forget that they are very expensive. If we really look at their value, if we were really to look at, like you said, if I were to hire a cook, how much is that? If I were to hire a cleaning person, how much is that? If I were to hire someone to take care of the kids, how much is that? When you see your value as a whole, your value as a homemaker, you will be surprised. And so I do encourage you that if you are in that situation where, we all have different lifestyles, and it makes sense for the mom to stay home or the dad to stay home. Do you actually know the value that they're bringing in? Because how can you say thank you if you don't know how monetarily they might
Mm-hmm.
not be bringing in income, but they're bringing in the value that the income is not needed there because you can support it from one. So
Right.
then, does she also have her single woman account? Do you have that kind of relationship? You have an open relationship that you fully trust each other. Finances and couples, they're a very tricky conversation. There's,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you look at the divorce rates that we have now, if we look at the lawsuits that we have now, couples are deciding to stay apart because of finances.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very mature conversation to have,
And not everybody's ready. I had a client yesterday, and I asked her, "Is your husband going to join us for session?" And she was just like, "No." And then she's like, "He's the problem. He's why I'm having the session with you." And so, but after that session, I gave her, I said, "Here are some boundaries that you might." I gave her clarity of her situation. Last night, she's talked to her spouse, and she said to me, she sent me a voice clip this morning, and she was like, "We had a great, amazing conversation." She hadn't been able to have that conversation in 10 years. It took one coaching session to talk her through it, to give her clarity, right? And sometimes people aren't willing to invest in that one session. That one session, just if she would have had that one session 10 years ago, where would her marriage and her finances be today?
Exactly. Exactly. And finances is a big, big conversation,
Mhm.
to continue to have.
So we're
Um,
going to wrap up, Ruby, because I know
so,
that we're both busy women, but before we leave this interview, I want people to be able to connect with you. If they need your services, how can someone reach out to you?
my phone number is 815-556-9629. You could go ahead and text us, call us. We do have a Spanish virtual assistant as well. So if you need help in Spanish, I sí hablo español también. Or you could go ahead and email us to advisor@mrbfinancial.com, and we'll go ahead and put it on the caption for you as well. It'll be my pleasure to help you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Ruby. It's tax season. You're busy. Thank you for taking the time to empower, to educate us. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation and for giving me the floor. I really, really hope that it adds value to you and all the listeners. If you guys have any questions, I'm sure Michelle and I will be more than happy to help.
Absolutely.